Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new edition of the 365 Sports Newsletter, Baylor Edition. I'm Craig Smoak, talking Baylor Bears with you once a week. And you can check me out not only in this video format, but also writing about the Bears as part of the 365 Sports Big 12 newsletter, which you can subscribe to over at 365sports.video. 365sports.video. You can see the newsletter in full format, all 16 teams covered, with at least a video and article on all the latest news. And I cover the Bears. So, again, check that out at 365sports.video. But here we are. And, well, it's quiet, short podcast this week because nothing at all happened during the bye week for Baylor. I wish that were true, but I don't know if it's in typical Baylor fashion, but in old Baylor fashion, in some fashion, this week was a lot more newsworthy than it needed to be, as a week where the Bears aren't playing anyone and are enjoying their second and final bye week, getting a little bit of extra time, which they will certainly need to prepare for the Utah Utes this Saturday. Not much going on until the end of the week in a Friday afternoon news dump from Outkick, where they reported on an incident that happened a few weeks ago before Baylor's game versus, I believe it was Arizona State. A story coming out that I will not get into the depths on because I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, although it's not a great look for Athletic Director Mack Rhoades, and it's just more signs of just weird dysfunction happening within a football program that is very much middling and without much of a direction right now. But a story that's not scandalous and not requiring 24/7, 365 ESPN on-campus sports coverage, unlike in the past. Just a dumb story to be a part of, quite frankly. A dumb story for Mack Rhoades to be a part of as an athletic director. And particularly, and I think this is why more of a spotlight was probably shown on the story in some corners of the world, but particularly interesting story if you don't care about Baylor, because Mack Rhoades is the current college football playoff committee chairman. So later on tonight, as we talk here on a Tuesday, they will have the college football playoff rankings for week number 2, and Mack Rhoades will be the man leading the way and taking the questions and giving the reasons as to why the committee placed teams the way that they did. He is the spokesperson for the college football playoff committee. It's a great honor. It's one I know he was excited about, still very excited about, but because of that role, in addition to Baylor just having a stigma of sorts to begin with, when you look at it from an outside looking in perspective, it's a double whammy that puts them under a little bit more of a microscope. And so when you see the college football playoff chairman committee, you kind of double take maybe a little bit more than you would if it was just an AD anywhere. And you see that they have gotten involved in what is still being described as various things like a tiff. I don't know if struggle's ever used, but a fight, not really that specifically, but certainly an argument took place between Mack Rhoades and star tight end Michael Trigg. As Outkick reported on, there was a disagreement, and I don't want to get into details because it's still very much fuzzy as to what caused this, as to what the all we know is Mack Rhoades approached Michael Trigg, had some words. Jared Anderson, tight ends coach, took exception. Michael Trigg took exception. And beyond that, be honest with you, there's a lot of people at Baylor that aren't talking about it. And it's not the only situation that's arisen lately, which is really what compounds this even more. Baylor fans, as you well know, because there was something that occurred with offensive line coach, now former offensive line coach, Mason Miller, 2-3 weeks ago that led to his in-season dismissal. And there was a lot of, well, it was this, but no, it was that, and there was this, and there was that. I mean, this is the type of thing that if you pay for a subscription to a Baylor message board that you should know all the details of. I'm not sure if that's the case, but this is the exact type of story where you pay a subscription to learn about what happened with Mack Rhoades, Michael Trigg, and this whole dust-up, not from Outkick the coverage. Same thing with the Mason Miller story. So I don't know really what all is out there in terms of that, but that's kind of where this lies, more so than like an ESPN front page article or something along those lines at this point. What I do know is very little in terms of details, and I'm not going to gossip and talk about that during this podcast. This is what I will say. It's just messy, and it's a bad look, and it makes Mack Rhoades look like a goof, and it makes Dave Aranda look like a goof, and it makes this football program look kind of goofy, for lack of a better term. Look like it's not really strong at the leadership spots right now. Looks like it's a program that's just, well, messy. And, there's still football to be played. So to have two stories like this over the last month and to have a story like this during a bye week when everything should be quiet on the Western Front, it's just a bad look, and it's unnecessary, and it's self-inflicted, and Mack Rhoades should have known better. And I don't know what stems from this in terms of, are some coaches not with the program next year? Is a whole new staff with the program next year? Is Mack Rhoades with the program next year? Well, I'll answer those questions. I think Mack Rhoades is with the program next year. I don't think he's going to go anywhere, although you can't really get into any more situations here soon, because then there's a pattern that develops, and there doesn't need to be any type of off-field pattern or on-field, technically in this case, with your athletic director. You get two or three of those, and that's a bad look, and you kind of need to move on. Now, I can't speak to the staff. I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see any staff changes, but I also won't be surprised at all to see a wholesale staff change at this point. I am not guaranteeing, nor am I reporting that there is going to be a change. But here's the situation. Baylor comes off of their second bye week now at 5-4. They have 3 games left to play. At minimum, they must win one of these games to reach a bowl game. Reaching a bowl game, and if that you were told people in the preseason with all the expectations, all of the NIL pickups in the portal and the return of Sawyer Robertson, as well as some other great players like Josh Cameron, if I had told you that by week 9 we're talking about can they make a bowl game, you would assume Dave Aranda was probably already fired or is on the verge of being fired. I think that is still very much in play because, quite frankly, if you do not make a bowl game, that should absolutely be on the table at this point. This is not a roster that was built to barely make the postseason. This was a roster that was said to have been built and on paper was built to win a Big 12 title or at least compete for one. You are not going to play for the Big 12 title in Arlington, even if you were to win out. But you can at least get into the postseason, and hell, you could finish 8-4. And if you were to do that, I think you'd feel pretty okay about things. Although anything short of like 10-2 was not going to be good enough for some people. And by year 6 of a coach's stint, I can understand that, especially when on the up and down roller coaster, this is supposed to be the up year. That's the most up you've been since the biggest year that Dave Aranda had back in 2021. So I think anything in terms of the future is very much still alive and in play, and is imperative on this team, if they want to maintain the status quo, to go win that 6th game as quickly as possible. And if they really want to try and ensure that things go the way they would like them to go in terms of keeping the status quo, then they really need to win out, just simply to get to like an 8-4. I think 8-4 would be respectable, although still slightly disappointing. Anything short of that, I think it looks like you underachieved, no matter what the reasons as to why may be. This is a team that has been somewhat hit by injuries, but not riddled by them. It's not as though Sawyer Robertson has missed multiple games. He has not been healthy, clearly, in a lot of cases, but he has not missed multiple games. You've not been relying on a freshman quarterback. Half your defense isn't out with injury. You literally lost a guy in week 2 against Auburn, and I don't call Jackie Marsh just a guy, but you literally lost him for the latter half of that game, and it completely crumbled your defense. That's a house put up and built on toothpicks, not on the strong foundation you expect by year number 6. So here we go this weekend with the start of this final 3-game stretch. You need one to make a bowl game. And again, that was the bottom level expectation. But you look at the schedule, and there's a very real chance they get 0 wins down the stretch. There's a very real chance that they don't make a bowl game, even with 3 more swings at the plate. And I think that would absolutely ensure changes at the top of the football program. I don't see how it could not. I don't think you can go into another offseason and just kind of strong arm your way through telling the donors and the fans that we'll just give them one more chance. No, I don't think you can do that. I think that this team has to win out, basically. And I think that anything short of that, anything is in play. And I think even if you were to do that, it's probably still somewhat in play, at least debating on what direction to take this offseason. So can they do that? Sure, they can. Will they do that? I have my serious doubts just based on the way we've seen them play. A team that hasn't won more than 2 games in a row is seeking to win its second game in a row. They've had 2 weeks to prepare, albeit not without distractions, as I just mentioned with the Michael Trigg, Mack Rhoades story. But the other part of the problem is you're playing Utah, who is arguably, besides Texas Tech, the best team in the Big 12. Now, I know BYU will have something to say about that. They just took their first loss to Texas Tech. Utah, one of their 2 losses to Texas Tech. But Utah playing really, really well right now. And Utah still in that mix, although the hourglass is starting to get down to the nitty gritty, the sand getting very, very low. Texas Tech in the driver's seat. They've all but booked their trip to Arlington and may very well by the end of this weekend. And BYU and Cincinnati are ahead of Utah right now. There's also Houston and Arizona State with 2 losses at the moment. So Utah, not in control of their own destiny, but knowing they need to win out, and really more so than that, playing really good football and certainly looking like a much better team from week 0 up until now, in comparison directly to Baylor football. So this is a home game. This is a Saturday night game. They're not really getting all the bells and whistles. I haven't seen a lot of the marketing. Maybe I'm just missing it out. Maybe my algorithm has stopped showing me all those things. I'm not really sure, but not a lot of hype for this one, because I think at this point you've hyped people up early on only to disappoint them. And like at this point, you just got to win. You just got to, that's all people forget, the black uniforms and all this. Like, I'm sure there will be some elements of that, but really, people just want to see you win. They want to see you beat a team you're not supposed to beat, which doesn't happen and hasn't happened very often here lately. And in an opponent like Utah, this is going to be tough sledding. I don't expect to see them win this game. I'll go ahead and throw my prediction out there right now. I don't have an exact score in mind, but something along the lines of like 31 to like 20 or something like that. I could see being the score. I'm not sold really on those numbers just yet, but I think this will be like a double-digit Utah win. I don't think Baylor wins this game. I think Utah is just a better team. Now, if the Bears come with their A-plus game, then there's reason to believe they can pull an upset at home. But looking at this matchup, I just don't see where they're favored in any way or capacity. You could say quarterback play. Fair enough, but I don't think there's a massive gap there unless Sawyer Robertson is going to plan on having a career day. And even then, I doubt that's going to happen against a very tough Utah defense. So I think they need to win as much as possible, and bowl eligibility is a must. I just don't think it's going to happen this weekend. And when you look farther down the line, at Arizona, a winnable game, but also a very losable game. And then Houston at the end of the year, Houston just rolled into Waco 2 years ago, a much worse team than they are now, and beat Baylor straight up. So there is no guarantee of the 3 games remaining on this schedule that they'll get a win. And this weekend, the least percentage chance of getting a win, but that's why they play the game. So can Sawyer Robertson and Dave Aranda and company cook up a win this weekend and save some face and save some of the negative talk and save maybe some jobs as well ultimately? I don't think that will happen directly with the win this weekend, but I do think a win this weekend is a crucial step in doing those things that I just mentioned. And even then, I still think there's questions about what we're talking about by the end of the year. It's not a fun place to be in, but it's not like we're in year 2 of an experiment. We're in year 6. It is what it is. It's big business, and you need results. And that's just the reality. The grown adult conversation of this, feelings aside, that's the business of college football. And Dave Aranda's had his fair share of chances. He's had a lot of time. But, man, when you're not very good in a year where you expected to be good, and now you have these outside stories that are dropping, now 2 on the season, it's just not a good look. It's not a good feeling, and it's not a good place to be in if you're a Baylor Bear fan. And I'd love to be more positive and talk about positive things, but I'm not a sunshine pumper, and I never will be. I'm a realist, and in this case, this is just being really real about Baylor football. I pick Utah this weekend. I give them a puncher's chance, but beyond that, I think it's going to be really tough sledding. Forget all the extracurricular and the outside noise. Let's pretend this is week 1. I'm still taking Utah based on what we've seen, and I think it's going to be a real challenge for the Bears this weekend. But I am intrigued to see this game and see how it unfolds and see what kind of punches Baylor can throw with a couple of weeks to prepare. But get past the Mack Rhoades story. Seems like everything's smooth sailing on the other side of that, because the story actually was a couple of weeks late. but not a good look and not the best matchup to try and get back onto the positive side of things this weekend with Utah rolling to town. But a heck of an opportunity. So we'll see if they could take advantage of that. 6 o'clock, ESPN2, Baylor and number 13 Utah at McLean Stadium. We'll talk about that result next week, write about it as well. If you want to see these videos in your inbox every week, as well as my writing on Baylor and coverage of all 16 teams in the Big 12, go check out 365sports.video, 365sports.video. You can sign up there and get the Big 12 newsletter delivered to you each and every Wednesday. Until next time, hope you have a great week. I'm Craig Smoak.